Mother India was a classic film produced in India in the year 1957. It depicted the tragic story of a couple and their two children engaged in agriculture. Having borrowed a loan from the local loan shark, they are unable to repay the loan and the interest. Forced into penury, the mother is forced into plowing the field by hand as they could not own the ox. That was in 1957. A news report published in 2020 in a prominent newspaper in India read like this, and I quote: a debt ridden farmer was forced to plow his field with the help of his daughter as they had no money to hire a tractor or buy bullocks. Due to the lockdown, the 49-year-old farmer was left with no money to plow his 1 acre of land for monsoon crops. Left with no option, Jagdish, that was the name, with the help of his daughter Radha, plowed the field. Neither I have the money to purchase the ox nor to hire a tractor, said Jagdish. He broke down while narrating his ordeal. Normally, one needs fuel worth around rupees 300, which is $4, to rupees 400, which is $5, to plow an acre. But I do not have even that much of money. That's what he said. While it is a fact that today there are many instances of girls scaling new heights in various disciplines like aviation, electronics, technology, IT, agriculture unfortunately paints a very depressing picture. Let me present some more dismal statistics in agriculture. As per Government of India report, since 1995, over 300,000 farmers, 300,000 farmers have committed suicide. It is widely suspected that the figures could be even higher as states are reluctant to share the real data. While there are several reasons why farmers take such extreme steps, like debt trap, vicious cycles of drought and floods, the real tragedy unfolding must be faced by the women folks who must carry on with the farming with the debt burden, the loss of status, and negligible resources. In addition to these problems, she has to manage the family and make sure that the children have something to eat. Now, coming to Africa, as per one report, Africa is playing a life and death match when it comes to food security, especially in the context of climate change and population growth. The need for the talents of a full team is more urgent than ever. I would add that the full team with the right kind of mechanization tools is going to be the way forward. Again, as per one survey, women play a central and critical role in African agriculture. Around 62% of them are involved in farming. Women do the bulk of the work to produce, process, and market the food. They are on the front line of agriculture. Yet, when it comes to shaping research agendas, setting priorities, decision making, and leadership in agriculture research and development, women are heavily underrepresented. They account for just 22% of agricultural scientists, with just 1 in 7 women occupying leadership positions in agriculture research. As mentioned, women comprise a large share of agriculture work in sub Saharan Africa, accounting for more than 60% of the agriculture labor force. Yet, and this is important, women's work in agriculture goes mostly unpaid and unrecognized. Additionally, women are facing the work burden, the shall I say, the triple burden of the work, the reproduction, the home responsibilities, children education, etc. The allocation of tasks for women shows extreme bias. Women are burdened with cumbersome tasks such as fetching water and firewood, cooking, cleaning the house, attending to children in addition to working in the field. Thus, while men are busy with land preparation and cash crop production, women are busy with weeding, harvesting, processing, and in transporting the harvest from the field, in addition to taking care of the livestock, milking cows, goats, etc. Now, let me address the question that is uppermost in our mind. Is there a way we can solve the vexed issue of poverty and gender imbalance? And the answer is yes. We can address it in a wholesome way by bringing in innovative mechanization that will not only remove the drudgery but will also result in better yield, equitable work assignments between men and women, less post harvest loss, and most importantly, profitability and better standard of living. While on mechanization, let me make two important points. Traditionally, mechanization has always been thought of in relation to rich farmers with large landholding, and for mechanization has unfortunately been largely gender blind or gender neutral. Some experts have cynically pointed out that even if mechanized tools are introduced, men will start using it and women will be forced to do more manual labor. This is so due to history of sociocultural norms and values that force women to do manual work and looking after the house related concerns. Also, the notion of male supremacy becomes a barrier in changing the perception and outlook. So, we come back to the question, what is the way forward? And the trigger to this question came to us from a recent project that we were undertaking in Bangladesh. And let me digress here slightly. We were examining entrepreneurship and creditworthiness among the bottom of pyramid men and women from the smallholder farming community. The analysis revealed some surprising results. It was observed that men distinctly showed more entrepreneurial bent of mind but scored low on honesty, diligence, integrity, and hard work. Shortcuts and looking for immediate gratification were quite evident. Now, this is important. While women were low on entrepreneurship, they had high achievement drive and scored high on honesty, diligence, integrity, and conscientiousness. In short, men appeared more entrepreneurial but less creditworthy, while women appeared more creditworthy, had more drive and will to succeed, but less entrepreneurial due to the limited opportunities that were available to them. The results were consistent with other results obtained from Kenya, Tanzania, and Senegal. It does look like women get less opportunities to be entrepreneurial, but their entrepreneurship gets reflected virtually every day in the way they manage the household chores. They mostly engage in menial jobs apart from managing the household work full time. In addition, as the collaterals are mostly in the spouse's names, if at all they have some, they are out of the reckoning for any loans to start an enterprise. But wherever they have been able to obtain loans, they have been proven trustworthy, highly creditworthy, and highly entrepreneurial than their male counterpart. Now, let me talk about the agriculture equipment and machinery. Firstly, agriculture machines and equipments are mostly made by male mechanics and this is important to note. Adjustment is often needed to make it suitable for women farmers due to their body size, physical strength, and limited experience of using them. This was the case with sweet potato silage chopping machines in Uganda and potato grading equipment in Bolivia. Adjusting to women's needs is often undervalued in the process of development and introduction of machinery, but it is a particularly important factor to increase its adoption rate and thereby bring greater impact. Secondly, women's needs and interests are often ignored in the process of decision making within the household and community and the project. Male decision makers may be unaware of women's real needs or have little incentive to invest in equipment or machinery for women. This was the case in processing factories in Nigeria, where factory owners were not aware of women's health problems caused by harmful smoke and did not invest in smoke reducing gari fryers that could reduce women's exposure to smoke and possibly increase productivity. CGIAR, a respected research body, published a paper wherein they wrote, and I quote, machines and equipments not only save labor and time, but also create symbolic power. In the matrilineal Eddie community in the Central Highlands in Vietnam, for example, many men perceive that their decision making power is higher than their wives because they can drive two-wheel tractors while their wives cannot. Tractors thus enable men not only to control some aspects of farming and increase their mobility, but they also strengthen men's symbolic power. The symbolic aspect of mechanization is a neglected topic in agriculture research, but introducing machineries without gender consideration risks supporting men's symbolic power and thereby contributing to sustaining the existing gender power relationships. I'm happy to see this symbolism gradually shifting from male dominance to female assertiveness. There is a company called Green Heron Tools, a company that focuses on researching and designing tools and machinery designed for women. This company deploys a scientific design process to match the tool not just to anthropometrics, kind of the size and shape and function of women's bodies, but also how women tend to work, which is different from how men tend to work. Having trademarked the term ergonomic, ergonomic, their female friendly tools are generally lighter, have patented grips to accommodate smaller hands, and come in variety of sizes. For example, their spading fork capitalizes on the user's lower body strength by enlarging the fork step. They are currently developing a walk behind tiller that is lighter, steadier, and more battery operated to avoid the pull chain mishaps. In India, FarmTrack, a company owned by Escorts, has developed customized tractor exclusively to be operated by women farmers. It is a modular tractor where parts can be attached separately. The last issue I would like to touch upon is the affordability of the equipment for poor farmers. There is need for innovative mechanism to make this happen. Traditional solutions will not work. In this connection, I would highlight three examples that are significant. The first one is from Nigeria. Hello Tractor is a social enterprise that works for providing access to mechanization through innovative tractor hiring services. Since many farmers lack collateral for investments in machinery, hiring services can offer an alternative that allows farmers to increase their productivity, yields, and income while avoiding high financial burden and the risks. The second example is of MyAgro. MyAgro enables access to finance for smallholders in rural areas of Mali and Senegal by offering an innovative layaway model to help farmers emerge from subsistence agriculture. It has a system allowing farmers to buy agriculture inputs via their mobile phones. The third example is from a company named Innovare. This is a US based organization that is headed by John Regan, who happens to be a very close and valued friend of mine. Innovare is dedicated to the cause of smallholder farmers in Africa. It has two models, the user based and vendor based. Innovare's research shows that a major bottleneck for agriculture production is not with the smallhold farmer, but rather with the agriculture value chain infrastructure and lack of equipment. Simply put, investment is required all along the value chain to allow for increased agriculture production and for farm produce to be processed and packaged to flow out of the farm. While large African agribusiness can generally obtain affordable bank financing to purchase property, plant, and equipment, and micro enterprise African businesses are able to achieve some financing through various microfinancing for some of their purchases, SMEs face borrowing rates that are high, with high collateral and guarantee obligations, and inadequate credit standing with the local lenders. Without investment, agriculture produce does not easily flow along the value chain. Innovare has created a smart lease financing facility to address this market gap for SMEs to purchase long lived equipment to build their production capacity. This is their vendor based model. Secondly, Innovare has expanded the use of lease financing tool to farmer organizations and even smallholders by partnering with organizations which are expert at connecting with farmers to provide mechanization and training. This is the user based model. To conclude, if we were to remove the scourge of poverty and eliminate the gender imbalance, we need to focus on three factors. These are profiling the entrepreneurship, trainability, and creditworthiness among women farmers by using psychometric batteries. Secondly, working out a doable business plan and right sizing equipment to suit their requirements. And finally, developing an innovative, affordable, and replicable leasing mechanism that frees the caged bird to fly in the blue sky. That is true women liberation and true women emancipation. Thank you very much.